of every single human being is the right way to approach human rights.
Thank you. Our next question, yes? Are you ready? Is from Audrey from the University of Pittsburgh.
My question is, who are the Rohingya in Myanmar, and why are they being persecuted by the government of Myanmar?
The question was, who are the Rohingya?
Could you sort of speak directly into the mic?
My question is, who are the Rohingya in Myanmar, and why are they being persecuted by the government of Myanmar?
I think you should not use emotive words like persecution, because what had happened in the Arakan was violence, communal violence, and there were crimes committed by both communities. And when you focus on what one community suffers, then you create further hatred. I think we should look at it as coolly as possible. The first thing to do to diffuse the situation there is to think of it from the point of view of rule of law. And this is where your question, who are they, comes in. We have to look at it from the point of view of rule of law in three different ways. First of all, rule of law in the sense of handling crimes as they should be handled. That is to say, when a crime is committed, action must be taken in accordance with the fact that justice must not only be done, but seen to be done. If this had been, if such action had been taken place in the case of the first crime that set off a whole series of communal violence, then I think we would not be in the situation we are today. Now that is the first requirement of rule of law. But rule of law must always be linked to human rights. Everybody's human rights, as I said earlier, must be sacrosanct. And rule of law must protect everybody and their human rights. And then there is rule of law with regard to citizenship. We have citizenship laws in Burma. And everybody in Burma must have the rights of a citizen in line with the citizenship laws. But we should go a step further and examine whether our citizenship laws are in line with international standards. That is the second step. But to begin with, we have to make sure that everybody who is entitled to citizenship in Burma under the present laws are given citizenship. And the third aspect of rule of law, which I think would help the situation, is to make sure that there are no illegal crossings of the border. This has added to the problems. Bangladesh claims that many Muslims come over from Burma and they do not really belong to Bangladesh. And Burma claims that a lot of Muslims who are now in Burma are actually people who have come over illegally from Bangladesh. It is very difficult to prove whether such assertions are right or wrong because the border is so porous and so badly policed. So if we could take simple rule of law steps to contain the situation, then we can go on to the next stage of diffusing the tension and bringing harmony between the two communities. It's not going to be something that you can do overnight. Communal tensions have existed for decades. They erupted recently because of one crime that was committed and not handled properly. It focused on all the problems that had been existing between the communities over the last decades, but it all came to a head. And the reason why I do not want to use accusative words is because I want people to just sit back and think of ways of resolving the problems than of accusing. Accusations do not always diffuse problems. They do not always resolve problems. Sometimes the proper accusations should be made, but they should only be made after due examination of the evidence. In the case of the Arakan, where there have been so many problems between Muslims and Buddhists, I would like to urge everybody to do what they can to bring about reconciliation. I was asked about this yesterday, and I made the point that condemnation does not necessarily bring about reconciliation. Sometimes, on the contrary, it puts obstacles in the path of reconciliation, which is why I do not want to use condemnatory expressions. I hope you understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I actually, Dr. Suu Kyi, as a follow-up to that, I mean, that question was specifically focusing on the Rohingya, but I'm not sure how many people know the history of Burma as far as the question of national unity. And certainly there are tribes, the Kachin, the Karen, the Shan. It's been an issue for Burma throughout its history. And I wonder, you know, and it is a history that has been very, very deeply troubled in terms of violence perpetrated by and against ethnic tribes. And there is a deep distrust of the military government, given the fact that the military is still, you know, a very powerful thing inside Burma. How do you see the road ahead in terms of reconciliation and erasing years, decades, if not centuries of scars?
Well, you must...
And a light, so the light is on. That's encouraging.
The information.
Does this work?
Yeah.
I was just saying that the military regime was brutal not just to ethnic minorities, but to the majority Burmese as well. And this is the nature of military regimes. And what we have to do is to build a society where such authoritarian governments do not take over power anymore. But the distrust between the ethnic minorities and the majority Burmese, and the distrust between other ethnic nationalities, is one of long standing. But I am convinced, I'm confident that this can be resolved, because over the last 20 years, when my party, the National League for Democracy, was persecuted and oppressed by the military regime, our strongest and closest allies were ethnic nationality parties. They stood by us at a time when other Burmese parties did not dare to stand by us. So we have known from experience that unity can be achieved through understanding, through a determination to...
I think it's the power of your oratory that he's
Do you think it's a mic that's falling?
There you go.
Let's come back again.
There you go.
Our next question is from Barbara Svenik from New Paltz University.
Hello, it's a true honor. What kinds of challenges, problems, or questions keep you up at night?
Well, what keeps me up at night is the fact that I find it very difficult to sleep. It's true, I'm a very light sleeper. And every little noise wakes me up. But on the whole, I've learned something which I'll pass on to young people. When something troubles me, I think to myself, well, after 24 hours, this will seem less serious. And the moment I think like that, the whole thing becomes much easier. And you must start practicing this now. When something looks as though it's going to be the most horrible thing that ever happened to you in your life, think to yourself, after 24 hours, this will seem much less serious. And once you start thinking like that, you begin to get things into proportion. So this is why usually issues do not keep me awake, but the fact that I'm a light sleeper does.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Emily Ramirez from Brooklyn Tech.
Hi. You have shown that one person can make a huge difference to a country, but you have paid a high personal price. Has it been worth it? How can you forgive the military for holding you in house arrest for 15 years? Do you see our world progressing or sliding backward freedom-wise?
Has it been worth it? Yes, I think it's been worth it. And I have to say that I have never thought that I was making any sort of sacrifice or undergoing any kind of suffering. I always thought of myself as following a path that I had chosen for myself. And because of that, I never felt that I was suffering unnecessarily. And also, I never forgot that I was I was in a much more fortunate position than my colleagues who were in jail. So when you ask, can I forgive the military for having put me under house arrest for, 17 years, something like that? Well, to begin with, I've always been very fond of the military. You mustn't forget that it was my father who founded the modern Burmese army. And my earliest memories of him were in uniform. Not himself, because I can't remember him really. I was 2 years old when he died. But the photographs around the house showed him in uniform. So I'd always thought of my father as a soldier, as a member of the Burmese army, as well as the father of the Burmese army. And because of that, I'd always had deep affection for the army. And I have to say that affection never vanished throughout the years that they kept me under house arrest. And I must be fair and say that although they kept me under house arrest, they treated me well. Most of them treated me as my father's daughter. That is to say, they treated me as a member of the family, albeit a rather troublesome one. So forgiveness is not an issue. I don't feel I have anything to forgive them for.
Thank you so much.
I'll say that when on one of my first trips to Burma, I thought you were under house arrest. And I remember that it was early in the year and they were celebrating Aung San Day. And it was this day of national pomp and circumstance. And the irony was quite thick, given the fact that you, his daughter, were under house arrest. And here was an entire nation celebrating his legacy. Do you, as you progress...
Which year was that?
That would have been 2008 or 9.
I think you must have been making a mistake because soon after I'd been placed under house arrest, they started trying to, they started removing my father's photograph from public places, and the journals and magazines were not allowed to publish photographs of my father unless he was part of a group. And my father's portrait used to be on the currency, and that was changed. So they did take steps to try to eradicate my father from the consciousness of the nation. So I don't think it could have been...
I'm not trying to speak out of turn. I don't think there were pictures of your father, but it was officially Aung San Day, and the celebration was much more about the military than
no,
him.
There isn't such a thing as Aung San Day either.
Then I have no idea.
There's martyrs. What time of the year were you in Burma?
Much less serious in
January.
January getting to be a hazy trip down memory lane.
January, you're probably about Independence Day, which is the 4th of January.
That might have been.
And of course, my father is considered the architect of Burmese independence.
Yes.
But still, I don't think you would have seen too many portraits of him around.
But there's still the notion that there is a celebration
Yes.
of Burmese independence. The point has definitely been made by given the
Yes.
fact that
I think the policy has changed now. Last 19th of July, this is Martyrs' Day, the day my father was assassinated, the government gave much more public recognition to it than they have done for a long time. Previously, before 1988, it was quite... it was traditional for, at the beginning of July, to start producing quotes of my father in the newspapers, portraits and articles about him, right up to the 19th. And then there were also programs on television about him. Things started changing after I entered the movement for democracy. And one of the first signs of this was in 1989. Before I was placed under house arrest. I was placed under house arrest after Martyrs' Day which was 19th July. I was placed under house arrest on the 20th. But in the week before, they were still keeping to the old program of television commentaries about my father, about Martyrs' Day, and photographs of my father, including family photographs. And we knew that something was not quite right when the family photograph of my father, my 2 brothers, and my mother holding me up as a baby was produced on television, but they cut me off there. So my mother's arms were like that, but there was no baby.
That's that's a sign that things may not be that
things
well.
are changing. Yeah.
We just have a few more questions, but just to the point of the government, the thing that always strikes me in sort of, I won't say totalitarian, but in governments where the state has a heavy hand, there is language that the Burmese government uses, whether in official signs and signage or in the New Light of Myanmar, which is the mouthpiece of the government, that is distinctly Orwellian in nature. Yeah. And now that you are part of the Burmese government, I wonder, in terms of moving the government forward, in terms of the interaction the government has with the citizens of Burma, how it speaks to the citizens of Burma, the notion of transparency, which is a relatively new concept. How have you found that process to be in terms of changing the dialogue between the state and its citizens?
The media has been liberalized over the last 15 months or so, and that's made a great difference because there are now a lot of independent magazines and journals, and their language is quite different from the language of the state newspapers. And I think the state newspapers, very few people buy the state newspapers for anything except the obituaries. That's what I was always told. That's why they buy them, because they have to they want to read the obituaries. Apart from that, more people are turning to the independent magazines and journals, and now I believe that they're going to allow private newspapers to be non-government, non-state newspapers to be brought out, daily newspapers. So I think because of the language of the other, what I would call normal publications, the state newspapers will also be obliged to use a different set of words.
We are looking forward to the MSNBC of Burma broadcasting soon. We have just one more question from Lindsay from the University of Delaware.
Thank you for being here. My question is, what do you think of Pussy Riot and of the Russian government's recent actions to curtail their free speech?
Well, I don't see why people shouldn't sing whatever it is that they want to sing. Well, there's nothing wrong with singing. I think the only reason why people should not sing is if what they're saying is deliberately insulting or if they sing terribly. I think that would be the best reason for not singing at all. So I would like the whole group to be released as soon as possible.
Can I add one little bit to that question? What would be your message to the Russian government about the decision on a case like Pussy Riot? What would you say to a government that has a case like theirs?
I want to ask one question first. Was there anything in the songs that was nasty to other people?
Well, I guess it's a matter of judgment, but yes, I think people would say, people could take offense at this, that it was provocative.
When you say people, do you mean the government?
Yes.
Well, I think governments don't count as people.
Well,
governments must be prepared to take criticism. That is one of their duties. I think it's a different matter if you are insulting other people, individuals. But governments must be prepared to take criticism, as long as it is made within the law, in the sense that people were not inciting others to a rebellion. Now, that is, of course, would be illegal. But governments which are not prepared to take criticism will never turn out to be good governments.
Just as we're wrapping this up, the idea of investment in Burma hasn't really been discussed that much, but certainly it is an incredibly wealthy country in terms of natural resources. There's been an embargo on investment for very, very long. The West is looking towards Burma, and there is a question of how do you open up a country in a way that is sustainable and responsible in a period of rapid change, and I would love to know your thoughts on that.
There are no easy answers to it, but one easy answer that I've thought of is transparency. We want to make sure that businesses going to Burma are transparent. That way we can find out if what they are doing is actually helping our country or harming it. Transparency is very important. And we want to make sure that the investment is what I call democracy-friendly, human rights-friendly. That is to say, that investment is aimed at meeting the needs of our people in a way which promotes democratic values and human rights. So that's a tall order. It's very, very easy to say this, but it's a tall order. And if we are to find out whether businesses are actually democracy and human rights friendly, these businesses would need to be transparent. So if I have to give one short, easy answer, transparency to begin with, and then we can make sure that we're going along the right path.
It's impressive that you were able to even give an easy answer to such a complicated question.
It's not really easy.
To the point, Suzanne, I don't know if you have anything else, any other questions, but I think we do have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I know we have to wrap it up. I'm going to just do one or two more things as we begin to bring this just extraordinary event to a close. This has been a really, really inspiring moment in our shared history, our history with you and our history as an organization. You have for so many years defined the term prisoners of conscience, and I think your charge to the next generation that our work needs to go beyond advocating for the individual prisoner, that we need to get to the root causes and understand and uproot those forces that put people behind bars, that cause regimes and governments to imprison the Aung San Suu Kyis and the Pussy Riots and the thousands of others. That is a charge that we take seriously as Amnesty, and I know we're going to have all these who are joining us, who've joined us in the room and across the country and around the world, coming together in that quest. And in our packet, we have a postcard for all of you that is a message of solidarity for Nadja, Masha, and Katya, who remain in prison. I ask you to fill this out and send your message to them. Take a moment to do so, and we will collect them. Peter and Gira themselves, who are with us, are going to bring those back to Gira's mother and to her bandmates and show them that the world stands with them. We won't let them be silenced. We don't think that that governments are people and that governments have a right not to be offended. So I want to thank you so much, Aung San Suu Kyi, for your courage and your inspiration, and thank all of those who have fought so long and so hard on your case and who continue to fight with us on Pussy Riot and on the thousands of other cases that we work on. I want to thank you, Alex, and I want to thank everybody who has been part of Amnesty, past, present, and future, shining a light on these abuses, and that light is going to shine on. Just before we leave the auditorium, I want to say we're going to ask all of you to remain seated as Dasu exits the auditorium. Right before we leave, we want to share this day with the world and show that everybody that when we speak out together, we are strong. I'm going to ask Dasu and Peter and Gira and their team to come up on stage. We're going to take a photograph. I hope you'll pull out your phones, take a picture if you can, tweet it to hashtag Rights Generation with Amnesty. This has been an incredible, memorable event that is going to stay with all of us for a long, long time to come. So thank you so much to all of you and to Dasu.
wish I was an American this morning. Sorry? I said I wish I'd been an American